What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode. I am Dr. Mike Axler, PhD in Applied Human Physiology, Professor of Exercise Science, 60 plus time marathoner and ultramarathoner, and performance coach. Today, we are going to be doing a little bit of a follow-up from a previous episode where we discussed the lactate threshold. Today, we are going to be talking about VO2 Max and trying to simplify that into much more easy to understand simple terms. Recently, VO2 Max has been discussed on various podcasts and YouTube videos as a huge, if not the best predictor of longevity alongside skeletal muscle. And I think that's wonderful. And let's try and dive into this today, talking about it at a first grade level, a bit of an eighth grade level, and a bit of a college level as well. And more so than that, of just defining it, also discuss how we can improve it. So first, let me sell you on this idea of why VO2 Max matters. And VO2 Max is going to be a very important fitness and overall health indicator. VO2 Max is the maximal oxygen uptake during intense exercise. So if you think about it, if you've ever been running alongside someone on the trail or on the treadmill or exercising with someone, maybe you or the other person was just like having a good time, you're breathing easy, you're doing your thing, while the other person's huffing and puffing. So the person who was huffing and puffing had a smaller VO2 max or a less VO2 max value than the person who felt fine. So the person who felt fine, their high VO2 max, what that's telling us is that their heart and their cardiovascular system is adequately trained to deliver fresh oxygen and nutrients to the exercising muscles. And the muscles are in turn able to use that oxygen to continue on with their exercise. That's a very good thing. Another analogy is that if you can go and run 5 miles, 10 miles, a marathon, and you're like, hey, I had a great time, smile for the camera, you've got a great VO2 max probably. But if you can't walk up a flight of stairs without getting out of breath, you probably don't have a great VO2 max. Obviously, this is going to be a very strong predictor of not only aerobic performance and how you do out on a training run or the race course, but with your cardiovascular health as well. Again, if you picture the avatar person who can't get up a flight of stairs without getting tired, or if you guys go out on like a trail someday, or you go out shopping, or you want to take a walk while you're on vacation, and they're like, hey, can we wait up? I'm really, really, really tired. And you're kind of rolling your eyes a bit like, oh, this person's always tired. That's probably an early sign of some cardiometabolic issues, something wrong with the cardiovascular system, the respiratory system, something metabolically wrong. They could have high blood pressure. They could have high elevated triglycerides, glucose. They could be type 1, type 2 diabetic. There's a whole host of things which are all tied to your cardiovascular health. And VO2 max is just one of the indicators of your cardiovascular health. And obviously, if we're going to kind of put this in like a nice mechanistic way, the higher your VO2 max is, the more that you can physically do, and the longer and healthier you will live. Awesome. Let's now talk about what VO2 max actually measures and the physiology behind VO2 max. So I had already discussed that this is just a measure of oxygen delivery from the heart and the lungs, or the cardiovascular and the respiratory systems respectively, to the muscular system, the skeletal muscles, and the ability to buffer away and carry away all those metabolic waste products. Among them are carbon dioxide, lactate, hydrogen ions, things like that. The way that we're going to quantify this is going to be in the volume of oxygen your body can use per minute as measured by milliliters per kilogram per minute. So if you've ever been in like an exercise science or an exercise physiology lab, maybe at like a hospital or a university, and you've done this before, you will need to be like breathing out of a tank. So that we're going to measure the inspired oxygen, the expired carbon dioxide to have a fixed volume of gas. We're also going to take your body weight to see how many kilograms you weigh. And obviously, we're also going to measure this in time by minutes. And what this is going to tell us is that this is going to give us an idea of your cardiovascular, your respiratory, and your muscular efficiency. So A high VO2 max equals a higher endurance potential. Already now, you might be wondering what is considered good or elite and what is an average VO2 max by age and by sex. So VO2 max naturally does decline with age, around 1% per year after the age of 30. And experts always say that like the age of 25 or the age of 30 is really going to be like your peak of physiological health, and it's going to slowly decline there on out until around 60, and you're going to have much of a sharper decline. And that's okay, because this is what happens with age. The main thing here is that, again, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. So the best time to train for your VO2 max and have the best cardiovascular system possible was 20 years ago, and the second best time is right this second. Older individuals who begin exercising at 60, 70, 80, they can jack up their VO2 max and be healthier than they were before. So right now, I'm guessing you're probably not 60, 70, or 80 watching this video. You're probably in your 20s or 30s. Start going to the gym. Start doing aerobic fitness, and we'll get on to that in the next slide. But you can train your VO2 max at any age, which is a wonderful thing. And for the benchmarks, for men, their VO2 max by average is around 40 to 60 milliliters per kilogram per minute. And with women, it's just a touch lower, around 35 to 50 mils per kilogram per minute. But for the elite endurance athletes, going back to Eliud Kipchoge, probably the third video I plugged him in here, his can be upwards of like 70 to 90 plus, which is bananas to think about. And again, there's obviously genetics involved as well as a whole lot of training. The next question to answer is, can you improve VO2 max at any age? And the answer is yes, and here's how. Genetics will set the ceiling, right? So it's like, if you were born under 6 feet tall, you're probably not going to go to the NBA, but you could, because you can also raise that floor through training, so you can get better at playing basketball. The exact same thing is here. A lot of people will say it on podcasts. I know like Goggins said it and Nick Bear said it, and those guys have run like 2:45 marathons really, really, really fast, and 100-mile races and stuff like that. So genetically, their VO2 max is not that high, but because they train so diligently, they can raise the floor, which is awesome, which means you can do that too. So endurance training specifically, and we'll talk about the zone 2 versus like the zone 4, zone 5, but endurance training increases stroke volume. Stroke volume is answering the question of how efficient is your heart, and more specifically, how efficient per beat is your left ventricle. If your left ventricle, aka your stroke volume, is very, very, very efficient, your heart rate will drop because your heart doesn't have to work as hard to pump blood every minute throughout your systemic circulation. So if you're someone who has a resting heart rate of like 35 or 45, your stroke volume, your left ventricle is very, very, very efficient, which means you probably have a great VO2 max. Next, with all of your endurance training and increasing VO2 max, we also increase capillary density. We discussed capillary density in one of the earlier videos, and when you have blood pumping from your heart throughout your entire systemic circulation, the blood travels by way of the arteries, and they come back to the heart by way of the veins. So oxygenated blood goes out, deoxygenated blood comes back in. So they go from the arteries to the capillaries to the veins, or arteries, arterioles, capillaries, venules, veins, to be a little bit more specific if you're a physiology person out there. So capillary density, when we build that up through endurance training, what that means is that we're building up more vasculature for gas exchange. That is awesome. And lastly, again, shout out to Bill Nye. We are building up mitochondrial biogenesis and mitochondrial efficiency. So with endurance training, we're building up more mitochondria, more engines, more powerhouses, which is going to help us be more efficient as an endurance athlete and just be healthier and have a better VO2 max. So big thing here is when you're asking the question of, can you improve VO2 max at any age? And we're answering by saying yes, and here's how. The three kind of physiological bullet points, so to speak, is endurance training is going to increase your stroke volume, so your left ventricle, your capillary density, so more vasculature for gas exchange, and lastly, you're going to build up more and more and more efficient mitochondria. Wonderful. already some training methods to improve VO2 max. And these are going to be science-backed, all the exercise science research, and it's pretty hot in the streets right now. You probably know about like zone 1 and zone 2 training, as well as like the zone 4, zone 5, and that's what that is, right? So we want to spend around 80% of our week at zone 1 and zone 2, and only around 20% of the week zone 3, zone 4, zone 5. The zone 2 training, that aerobic base building zone, is wonderful, as we detailed in a prior video, to increase fat oxidation, metabolic flexibility, mitochondrial biogenesis, increase capillarization. Phenomenal. Going to really help you increase your VO2 max. As will interval training, tempo training, progression runs, hill repeats, fartleks, all the really intense stuff that you might want to do Tuesday and Thursday, also going to really help you increase your VO2 max. But we can't forget about strength training's role, right? We're trying to be the best athlete that we can be. We're trying to be the healthiest and most and less injury prone person that we can be. We need to have strong and efficient muscles for that. So when you do resistance train, you will build up mitochondrial biogenesis, capillary density, but also those muscles will help in clearing lactate. They'll help you be strong and balanced and have a great sense of proprioception. So resistance training is going to be key in also helping to increase or sustain your VO2 max. And also, what we like about skeletal muscle is that it's going to offer cardiovascular support, specifically in the way of blood glucose control. We know that the muscles are going to act as a reservoir or a bank, so to speak, for blood sugar or blood glucose, so that after a meal, your pancreas doesn't have to work as hard to increase insulin to drive down blood sugar and then store it all away as glycogen. It'll just immediately go into the skeletal muscles, which you'll then use for exercise. So this predisposes you to not get type 2 diabetes. So we very much need to strength train if we also want to have a wonderful VO2 max. And we cannot forget about the lifestyle habits to help support VO2 max, namely sleep, nutrition, and recovery. I like to think about our health as like a 3-legged stool or a 3-legged table, or even this like tripod right here, in that you can work out really diligently in the gym and on the trail. You can eat a rock solid diet and you can rest and recover. But if you take away any of these, it falls. It can't just support itself on 2 legs. So specifically, we need to have a nutrient-dense diet full of fruits, veggies, whole grains, and complete proteins to support our cardiac muscle and our skeletal muscle. We also need iron-rich foods from heme iron and non-heme iron, so the animal sources and the plant sources respectively, to support red blood cell production in the hemoglobin. We also need the rest and recovery. We need to sleep 6, 7, 8, 9 hours a night in order to promote a more positive hormonal milieu and positive adaptations with respect to your training. And also, we just need to avoid overreaching and avoid overtraining. You can still get wonderful cardiovascular, metabolic, respiratory, musculoskeletal benefits from exercising 20 or 30 minutes a day. You don't need to do an hour or two. Just 20 or 30 minutes to start is better than nothing. Okay, TLDR, VO2 Max is not just for professional athletes. VO2 Max is going to be the strongest predictor of endurance and longevity. It is wonderfully trainable at every single age with consistency and structure. You will have to combine both aerobic and anaerobic training, so the easy zone 1, zone 2 with the zone 4, zone 5, plus strength training and your lifestyle factors of rest and recovery, as well as nutrition. And lastly, VO2 Max is not fixed. You can always become more efficient with regard for your cardiovascular health. Awesome. So with that, I do hope you go and run or bike or swim today, as well as lift some weights. If you didn't, make sure to get on that right now. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of this video, of the podcast, however you're going to intake this information. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this with a friend who needs to hear it. And also scroll on down and subscribe to both my Substack and my Instagram so you will not miss a beat with regard to the nutrition, exercise science, human physiology, all the good stuff that we cover. And I will catch you all in the next episode.